Okay, then I will. They would say, yes, American company is totally
You speak for.
But I know that you are responsible. You know the English saying, he who made the music calls the new.
So we have to do what is wrong.
No, there is also it's the war. So we are waiting. So I want to have an appropriate
Almost every some other aspects. What was it? And the robot you wind up
that's why especially for either do not have war.
the airspace is so that's it's
even their trained way that one showed up at St. Petersburg training facility, harness on it, and now I'm out of here. Went to Norway, where they said it. I think it goes back more like before.
We have more and more
Of course, they do not say. Probably regions. People understand the world,
Most of the recent recruits replacements have been from the provinces. So you just kids that are just
Okay, so I think we can start. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eduard SIMION, and I'm a retired Brigadier General currently working as Senior Assistant Expert in New Strategic Center. And it is my pleasure to moderate today the panel entitled Security Challenges in the Black Sea Area and the Response of the U.S. Defense Industry, Partnership for a Safer Region. I would like to remark the top quality speakers we have the chance to have with us today, and I thank you very much for your presence, and I'm confident that the discussion will bring added value at the end of the day. I consider the relevance of the topic extremely important in the light of the ongoing war and its development. The discussions will gravitate around the following topics. The war in Ukraine has demonstrated the superiority of some tactical U.S. weapon platforms and their importance for the defense capabilities of NATO's eastern flank. In the NATO context and at the bilateral level, how we can incorporate national contributions into the supply networks of leading American defense contractors. Learning by doing, how can industrial cooperation and know-how transfer with U.S. companies enhance the quality of national military production in a country like Romania? So, that being said, with no further delay, I will shortly introduce our first speaker, Major General Teodor INCICAŠ, who is the Chief of the General Directorate for Armaments, Minister of National Defense, Romania. Sir, the floor is yours.
It's all right. It's on?
Yes.
So, good afternoon, I believe. Distinguished representative of the embassies, generals, ladies and gentlemen. For the beginning, I want to address my congratulations to New Strategy Center for organizing a new edition of the Black Sea and Balkan Security Forum. We are participating in this conference in very difficult times. When we speak about the security in this area, security heavily affected by the unprovoked and violent aggression of Russia against Ukraine. The theme of this panel envisages our relationship with the American industry, and an industry which belongs to a state with which we have a solid strategic partnership. In this context, I want to express my gratitude to the American military serving in Romania. Also, I will extend it to all other nation servicemen being here in Romania, belonging to NATO nations, as a proof of a strong allied transatlantic solidarity in defending our territories and democracies, which is necessary to be demonstrated in these times. Sorry, I have some. I will keep what I wrote here because I want to be in these 7 minutes you have for me. Romania prioritized its endowment development, and its first priorities envisaged those types of equipment, part of capabilities able to deliver both defense and deterrence. And we know very well that there are very few pieces of equipment able to provide deterrence in the same time with defense. Because, and I connected to the panel I assisted before, I want to be very clear. We, the armed forces of Romania, have as the armed forces of the other countries the main mission to defend our territory and in the same time to deter a possible aggressor. This is our main mission. According to this mission, we acquire the equipment. Of course, other subsidiary tasks come after, and first of that is to develop our national defense industry. But our main mission remains to defend and deter. Therefore, our first main acquisitions refer to Patriot, HIMARS, which completed with already started F-16 program, generated our meetings and cooperation with the American industry. Of course, there are other acquisitions which envisaged American companies, like radars, communications, coastal defense system, and in a certain measure, Piranha 5. In the same time, we have participated yearly with the Ministry of Defense through the General Directorate of Armament to the American industry, and we met the American industry representative during the Romanian American Industry Forum, which was organized by the Romanian Chamber of Industry with the American counterparts. Of course, there will be other programs of whose procurement processes are going to start or will start in the next years, in which we expect a future American participation. And I will speak about, but just examples, C4I, light armor vehicles, SHORAD, VSHORAD, integrated systems, tanks, helicopters, UAVs, etc. What are our conclusions in so far as cooperation with the American companies is concerned? We are very pleased of the quality of the equipment we received. That's with no doubts. Also, we meet, speaking about American companies, a total openness in cooperation with us. The assistance and technical interventions we needed were promptly and professionally delivered. Unfortunately, for some products, the mixture of defense commercial sale possibilities and the foreign military sale obligation is limiting the participation in open competition if we are not finding original solutions in this direction. In each acquisition, we met more companies which have helped us in knowing their possibilities and in opening other cooperation. Also, I want to say that for sure we will continue cooperation with the American companies, and we need more implication of them in our defense industry, including the transfer of technology in this area. I want to say finally that in this conclusion, that our cooperation was very much facilitated by the USG representatives, either we speak about Defense Department, UCOMS, ODC located here, or about the personnel from US Embassy, and we thank them for this facilitation. Looking at the title of this panel, yes, we can say, and we can conclude that we have a partnership for a safer region with the American industry. That's for sure. I will in the second part of my presentation, allow me to present some of the programs and the American industry implication in them. So, the multi-role aircraft F-16, by the acquisition program we started in 2017, the Romanian Air Force acquired 12 F-16 that are fully operational starting 2019. When I speak about F-16, I speak about payment, because otherwise the program was started before, and the general dealing with this program, General Moraru, is in the hall, and I salute him. Also, after 3 years, we bought other 5 aircraft. We have 17, and now we are concluding discussion with Norway about 2 other squadrons of 32 F-16. You'll wonder, you say, okay, Portuguese and Norway, but what's about Americans? We have, in setting up these capabilities, we cooperated very much, and we us some services and paid for Lockheed Martin. Because even if and people are speaking about, look at them, they are buying second-hand equipment. I underline that. No, we are buying equipment in use. We buy a very full operational equipment. F-16 is a very full operational equipment. And besides that, also we want to update him. The military and the industry knows about the fact that there are different stages of modernization of keeping up an older equipment in the same paces with the new equipment development, and we are doing that. And we, the Romanian Armed Forces, considering that this is an interim situation. Why an interim situation? Because by the end of this decade, we intend to buy the 5th generation aircraft. But the 5th generation aircraft, speaking about F-35, by the way, has two challenges for us. The first challenge is a solid multi-annual budget, or that could be done only in a careful planning, keeping into consideration of other programs. Secondly, the second role of this kind of aircraft is to facilitate command and control. In this line, it has to speak with land C2 systems, with land combat systems, with UAVs, with modern Navy capabilities. So, in order to buy that and to benefit 100% of that, you need those equipment first. So we are, therefore we decided to have F-16, not from other causes as an intermediate solution. HIMARS, the program ensures modern artillery equipment which will enhance defense capability of the Romanian armed forces, as well as will augment the interoperability level with NATO, because we have also NATO commitments in this line. When speaking about HIMARS, we are speaking about Lockheed Martin, Harris, Raytheon, and AM General. High altitude surface-to-air missile systems, HSAMs. This is the code of the program. It's about Patriot. In Patriot, we have a law. We have a law in which we say we'll buy 7 systems. Up to now, we paid for 4 systems. We employed 4 systems. We have a system completely operational received in 2020. The other 3 systems will come this fall. So, here we are working, speaking about the American industry with Raytheon, with Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Oshkosh, and Harris. NSM Coastal Defense System. The goal of the program is to have the system delivered and fully operational by the year 2024. We have a law approved in 2021. We signed the LOA. Hello, George. Yeah. If you would come 10 minutes ago, I would criticize you, but now I'm pleased. So, coming back, we signed the letter of acceptance in 2021. We expected the delivery of the system in 2024, but up to them, Raytheon will have to communicate the Romanian company, because they're an industry cooperation. The Romanian company they will cooperate with, and we will sign the memorandum with Raytheon on that. We at Ministry of Economy according to the law, and as we know, we received the equipment in time. Radars. The entire Romanian radar system was built up on radars delivered mainly by Lockheed Martin, the last 7.1, TPS 77.3. The radars, the last ones were received this year. Communication information system, we have a permanent communication. We have a permanent cooperation with L3 Harris. We are buying the communication systems from them. So, speaking about Piranha 5, because I said in a kind Piranha 5, we speak about a product which is provided to us by the General Dynamic European Land Systems together with MOVAC, product which starting this year will be manufactured almost entirely from Romania. Because why did this year? Because we have a 2027 number of products. First subsequent contract for 94. We signed this year the second subsequent contract, and according to this one, the hull will be also produced in Romania. Till now, we'll have the different sensors produced in Romania and other armament system produced in Romania, the software produced in Romania, the the communication information system produced in Romania. So, briefly, this concludes my presentation, but that just to fit in the 7 minutes time I received at homework from General SIMION. I wanted to say that we would want more implication of the American companies in our industry. If you would ask me why, because we needed a strong industry, we need a transfer of technology, and also we need the maintenance support, because these are the areas we're expecting: transfer of technology, maintenance support, and including Romanian company in the supply channel of those equipment. These are the three directions we are working in. We noticed the rate and implication with Aerostar in production of some pieces, part of radars of Patriot, but it's not enough. We are hoping that HIMARS maintenance will be brought to Romania, and also we noticed the cooperation between Lockheed Martin and Aerostar, and Aerostar became a center of maintenance for F-16. So, but we need more, and this is what I wanted to stress out. We need more implications of the American companies in the Romanian defense industry. But I want to underline in the end, sir, something. To be very clear, for the Ministry of Defense, and we declared many times, the Romanian national industry is equally made by the state-owned companies and the private companies. Actually, the largest company from the Romanian industry is a private company. Just in connection with what we said, the panel before us. And Mr. Pantea, believe me that we see the private Romanian, the private companies registered in Romania as part of the Romanian defense industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General. Thank you very much, General, for your comprehensive and detailed presentation. I find also your clarifications given beneficial not only for the audience purposes, but also for the large audience clarification. And I also want to thank you for your efforts I know you make with your team to bring up the most needed capabilities for the Romanian armed forces, but also for NATO. Thank you again. The next speaker of this panel is Mr. Adrian Jacob, the Executive Director, Lockheed Martin Global Inc., Romania. Sir, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So, no. It looks like everyone has his destiny. Okay. So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us here. Thank you very much, General, for mentioning the name of Lockheed Martin. It's impressive for us. And actually, my intention was to present you my personal opinion, so don't take anything from what I'm saying as a position of Lockheed Martin. would be my personal, of course my position is influenced by my experience in Lockheed Martin, but my intention was not to say anything about Lockheed Martin products and make this a marketing presentation. In addition, okay, so names like HIMARS, F-16, TPS-27 radars have been mentioned too many times, so are already famous not only in Romania but in Ukraine too. But okay, coming back to the topic, we have two elements here. One is called challenges, the second one is partnership. Okay, speaking about the challenges, please allow me to be selfish and talk about the Romanian challenges in the Black Sea, but not Ukrainian or Russian. So the first idea coming from challenges in Black Sea are of course related to the Russian-Ukrainian war, is that, in my opinion, and this was also shared by John Ben HODGES, and I was flattered with this, is that Russia will never start an aggression a la Ukraine against a NATO country. So in my opinion, this is one of the lessons that Russians learned here, and they will never use what I called attributable means, like aircraft, ships, tanks, okay, but only we expect them to be in war with NATO, but using completely different means, what I would call unattributable. And these are, if you allow me, be cyber, probably the most present. They are already in war in this area. Drones that are not attributable. Green men, you remember that they came here. They are speaking Russian, but they don't do. And they're speaking Russian, but are terrorists. They are not really. So we expect these people to come and to attack, for instance, the critical infrastructure and other information war, let's say psychological war, which is already started. And I was surprised because they have been so successful in Europe in the last 20 years. Okay? They have not used this. And also the economic weapons, that economic pressure they can have. So the question is which challenges we will approach first, which kind of threats we'll approach, the unattributable or attributable. So in my opinion, it's very clear that we have to be prepared especially for the unattributable war first, because this is the most likely to happen. Okay, people will say this one can happen. Yes, this one, the attributable can happen too, of course, but it is much more likely. I would say unlikely, very highly unlikely. So why should I prepare for this? If we have enough, do we have enough resources to prepare for both? Maybe, we'll see. But in my opinion, we have to focus first on the unattributable mission. And here I refer to them, if we talk about cyber defense, preparing here the MOD, and not only the MOD, but the Romanian economy for this. Imagine what it happens if the national power system is put down. Not for 1 day, not for 1 hour, for 3 days. In 3 days we will start fighting each other for water, for heat, for, I don't know, okay, food, for gas, for everything else. So this will be much more damaging than it. So we have to prepare for this, and we have to have means for having a solution for this. One of the solutions will be, for instance, energy storage, or to have green energy be able to be autonomous for a certain period of time, to have electricity in the house, at least for heating the house or something like this. So the type of war we have, also for the green man, to me the solution is to develop mainly, to me it's only my opinion, in general I hope I won't go over my charter in terms of military preparation, with the special operation forces. So we expect people to come from, imagine a submarine coming in the Black Sea, you have a boat with 5 people, coming back and coming on the shore, doing the damage and going back. So the special operation forces, in my opinion, are the most important. Also, the war in Ukraine shows this is true. Because what we see, high accuracy information, intel, it's fundamental, in my opinion. Intel is fundamental, okay? And if you come with this with special operation, intel tells you what happens and where it happens. Okay, addressing the threat is just the special operation forces obligation. So in other words, this combination between intel and special operations is, in my opinion, one of the most important things here. Now, okay, also speak about energy, small nuclear reactors could be another thing that could be talked in order to have a, let's say, energy independence. What they say. Yesterday was a very interesting discussion about semiconductors. It was really interesting. It would be an area where Lockheed Martin has no involvement. You see, not something that we are involved in, but Romania could develop this area and could play a major role here in this domain. So you see that many of these areas I refer to are not related to Lockheed Martin domain, but this is something that, as a partner of Romania, we have to see this from this perspective. Now, speaking about what we can do, speaking about partnerships, we started the partnership a long time ago. Unfortunately, because I'm coming from a communist era, I don't like to make too much noise about, I was too fed up with the communist propaganda, so we didn't make too much noise on what we have done. But just for information, Aerostar has become a national logistics support center for F-16 based on the plans that Lockheed Martin handed off about 3 years ago to Aerostar. This is how you have to make the center to work. This was given for free, and they have done this. But I'm sorry we have not made an advertising of this scheme, but this is something that is happening in the past. Lockheed Martin has provided 5 universities in Romania with computer-aided design software for the a value of 80 million in total, about 18 million for each university. So from this perspective, things happen, partnership happen, over and above what the public, let's say, advertising. But I hope. So from this perspective, it's very important. Here we need two things. One thing is the U.S. government support, and this is very important because we need licenses. If you like to do partnerships, it is important to have licenses and to have the licenses quickly. It's very important. Always a debate. And also the Romanian government support, because if you talk about the HIMARS Center, we cannot start the HIMARS Center until we receive a request via Ministry of Economy to do a HIMARS Center. We presented an interest. Aerostar has presented a letter of interest for doing a HIMARS Center, but the system has not reacted. Okay.
Are you critic now?
No. I'm saying that it's not for Ministry of Defense. Not at all. No, I'm trying to improve. No, I'm not a critic now. So, and the last word I would like to say here is that people, these American companies at the table here, should understand something very important. Now, partnership with Romania is not anymore an economic aspect. It's a security aspect. Because all these countries in Eastern Europe, Poland, Romania, Czech Republic, they believe that United States will come and defend Romania and their countries only if the United States gets important assets on this flank, which is actually this front. So investment now in Romania is something which related to national security. That's why it's not anymore an economic issue. So I hope this message has been well understood. And I'm finished here. I'm not out of the 7 minutes. I don't know. Okay. Thank you very much. This is my thing.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. I find the angle you approach the subject quite interesting, atypical, but very welcome. So I retain here that we need to work more on defining ways and means and channels to enhance the partnership as the major mean to build up trust and cooperation. Thank you very much again. The next speaker of the panel is Mr. Adam HODGES, and he is with the International Vertical Lift Sales and Marketing Boeing USA. Sir, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, General. Appreciate the introduction, and to my fellow panelists and to the New Strategy Center. I say thank you for yet another amazing forum. Despite the weather challenges, they put on yet another world-class event. It's an honor to be here and be a part and be a sponsor. So thank you for your attention today and the opportunity to speak. Obviously, this year's forum's been is flavored heavily by the ongoing events in Ukraine, the conflict there. And one of the things, before I address the topic at hand, I've heard said, and my background is I was a former Army officer. I was an aviator in the U.S. Army, recently retired before I joined Boeing from the U.S. military as a career officer and aviator in the Army. And so as I watch the events that have unfolded in Ukraine, and as we analyze, one of the things we need to be careful is we don't learn the wrong lessons, and as we talk about industry and acquisition and modernization of systems, there's been talk that, what we've seen with operational failures of the Russian forces in operations in Ukraine, that certain systems are now outdated because they didn't perform well on the battlefield. I've seen, discussions and analysis that the armored formations are no longer, the tank is dead. I've seen discussions that the aviation, manned aviation, helicopters or fighters are, because of their failures by Russia in Ukraine, that they're now obsolete on the battlefield. The reality is that's nothing could be further from the truth, because the systems didn't fail, it's the way they were used incorrectly. I'm a former aviator myself, and I see videos on Twitter of helicopters being shot down in Ukraine, and I just shake my head and I say, why am I seeing this video? Because that helicopter should be flying under the cover of darkness, or should be flying low enough that it can't be observed. And that's because the Russians are ineffective. It's because they don't know how to use the equipment they do have. The equipment they do have is inferior, and the tactics they use to employ are amateur. You should never do a daylight air assault. That's the fastest way to have your air assault ruined to get all your aircraft shot down. Right? But that's what they did on the first morning of the war, and it was a disaster. So, as we look at the things that they have done incorrectly, let's not learn the wrong lessons. All right, so addressing the task at hand, I want to stay within my time, so I'm going to dive into specifically the question you asked about, in the context of NATO, how can member countries, incorporate national contributions and supply networks of leading American defense contractors. So obviously I represent Boeing, so one of the largest military contractors in the world. And so I want to offer 3 words that I'll expound upon that I would offer as advice, and then those are urgency, competition, and risk. All right, and if you look at urgency, there's clearly been, a sense of urgency for the NATO member countries that are closer to Russia, that are along the Russian flank, to look at, what is needed, what must be done now. We're no longer in a hypothetical, will Putin, attack, or will he do this, or could he do that? The answer is yes, yes, and yes, and we should not expect anything else from Putin or from the leader of Russia whenever Putin is gone to be different. And so, NATO member countries, not everyone is displaying the same sense of urgency, and so, countries must look at, what can they contribute right now? What are their natural strengths that they can contribute to, and where do they want to aspire to be? And we talk about the next word being competition. So if NATO member countries aspire to be, suppliers to a company like Boeing or Lockheed or any other major defense contractors from the United States, they have to embrace competition. Understanding that becoming a source of supply for Boeing or for a major American country or major American company is you must be competitive in the marketplace. These companies desire competitive performance out of the suppliers. Competition in a free market drives down price and increases quality, and that's something that companies must ensure they embrace. And thirdly, when you have competition, there's risk. There's always the risk that competition leads to failure, and that can't be something that a company shies away from. Sometimes companies compete and they fail, but you should learn from those failures and become better before them. And a good example of competition in action, the airframe that I represent, that I flew for 22 years in the Army, was the Apache helicopter. And that is, it's the greatest helicopter in the world, not just because it's the helicopter of choice of the United States Army, of which there's 800 aircraft flying around with the U.S. Army flag on it, but there's also almost as many Apaches in the world that fly for partner nations. There's 17 partner nations that fly the aircraft, and there's almost 600 foreign military sales aircraft. So almost half the fleet in the world fly for countries that aren't the United States. And most of those countries have industrial cooperation agreements where they contribute to the Apache in some way. And we've found foreign military sales partners that have contributed to research and development. They've come up with a new part or a new capability that was superior to what the American version was, and we have gone and incorporated that technology and those capabilities into the system. So embracing competition is critical if you want to be a supplier for a company like Boeing. The concept of risk and potential failure. There's a famous speech from former American President Theodor Roosevelt that says that the critic, it's not the critic that counts, it is the man in the arena, the competitor whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who dares and sometimes errs, but does so while daring greatly. So for to be a supplier and to be allied with the best companies in the world, you have to risk potential failure and dare greatly. And so, in interest of time, I don't want to we'll go over my time, sir. The conclusion for companies that look to want to align with a company like Boeing, you must be aggressive, you must be urgent, you must be willing to compete, and you must be willing to accept risk to potentially win and align with the best. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. The next speaker of today is Mr. Paul Strebel, the Senior Director, International Business Development for Oshkosh Defense LLC USA. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Oshkosh Defense is also pleased to be back to re-engage with familiar faces and carry on conversations that sometimes have spanned multiple times year over year. I don't want to overstate the obvious, but the current conflict has reaffirmed the need for ground-based tactical wheeled vehicle capability. You can engage a tank with a 4x4 in the correct terrain. Some days you can even do that with a man-pad and a motorcycle. A lot of our allies who are currently using the JLTV in the Balkans, the Baltics, if I can use a simple analogy, JLTV is the iPhone and the integrated capabilities are the app. So you, the user, go to your app store, and what types of apps can you find? Anti-tank, with collaboration to use Javelin, TOW, and Spike. Anti-personnel, 50 cal, and then moving all the way up to 20, 25, 30 millimeter cannons. Anti-aircraft with Stinger. Anti-UAS, various forms of kinetic, laser, and electromagnetic. Intelligence and communication sensors, boomerang, laser detection. Indirect fires with the Spear 120 millimeter low recoil mortar, and long range precision with NLOS and APKWS. So the mobility and the capability, interoperability of the JLTV platform is bringing new dimension to force formation and capabilities at a time when it's needed most. It's also important to have vehicles for logistics and resupply to this front line to support these advanced systems. It's one of the reasons we're producing a 10x10 specialty vehicle that will be capable of moving 29 metric tons of available payload. So to address some of the questions the moderator had posed to us, at the NATO and bilateral level, how do we incorporate national contributions to the supply networks? The way we see it with Oshkosh and the tactical wheeled vehicles, with systems interoperability comes support and supply chain interoperability. And so I don't know if you realize, but Romania is the only military in Europe that will have common platforms of ours for the light, medium, and heavy that align to the U.S. Army. And what's special is that, in the case of the JLTV with Special Forces, Romania will no longer have to park their vehicles and use borrowed U.S. equipment. They're the same build, the same standard, the same training, fully interoperable between forces. Pooling and sharing between countries, of course, is an obvious answer to how that's solved. With 5 other user nations in Europe, plus the U.S. Army with well over 1,000 of common platforms, pooling and sharing is a great way to contribute. Sometimes industry can mobilize faster under existing contract mechanisms to support much needed support when required. One such example is the U.S. Army has been a big proponent, especially through its Theater Sustainment Command, to implement a NATO-wide contract facilitated by NSPA to allow any ally to come to a authorized repair and service center in any of the deployed countries, have work done, and everything flows through a framework agreement that's already been preset. This is being rolled out in Poland right now, and we're also proud to be involved with Romar Moreni, who's on the qualified list, and we're working diligently with them to make sure they're to the qualified standard to accept this work for both U.S. Army and any of the NATO partners here. Sourcing and producing parts, manufacturing locally. So we're doing quite a bit of analysis right now on high-turn, high-use items to span the thousands of vehicles that will be in service to decide what makes sense that we can definitely source from within the region. It's also, I feel, part of my duty to do my public service announcement that ITAR is not a barrier to foreign party involvement on U.S. platforms. We commonly get this, right? I hear the chant of, you know, here's an ITAR-free product, come buy this. There's procedures and authorizations that can be granted. You have to plan in advance. You have to write a correct scope. You have to be organized about it. But we have not had ITAR be a limitation to any of the engagements and capability to engage and utilize our foreign partners. On the topic of industrial cooperation and this know-how transfer to enhance the quality of national industry in Romania. The U.S. defense industry drives quality standards, traceability, documentation, many of which in our case are becoming even more stringent as process controls similar to the U.S. automotive industry are being imposed into the military vehicle manufacturing. So through the supplier development process that we're going through with Romanian companies, both state companies and private, we're bringing this know-how because we have to have them up to that same standard to be able to be a supplier of ours, or in that case, any other U.S. defense company. I think it's also key to leverage existing companies, and of course that brings the indigenous labor that comes with us, which is extremely talented in this country. And I also want to give credit where credit's due. There are other multinational defense companies, a lot of them are of non-U.S. ownership, who are in Romania. They employ thousands. They're doing amazing things with engineering, design, manufacturing across the aerospace and defense sector. And they're exporting tens of millions of dollars out of this country, including to the U.S. market. So, our company will learn from them, will leverage them. And I also want to remind Romanian companies who produce products for military applications. There are non-U.S. technologies that go through the foreign comparative testing process in the U.S. We've got several partners right now who are going through this because of the products they make. They want to put on JLTV. It works, it's effective. You can penetrate into the U.S. Army procurement system through this mechanism that's been put in place by the U.S. government. Lastly, my own personal observation is engineering is going to be one of the keys to the future of Romania. Everybody knows there's a global shortage of this capability. And if Romania can continue to graduate electrical, mechanical, aerospace engineers, you'll draw in the multinational companies to establish their centers of excellence here. It's impressive, and it's very much needed. So in summary, with my remarks, there are benefits to both U.S. and Romanian defense industry when collaborating through these partnered activities. And it's a long-term game. And I think I know all of these American companies well, and all are committed to doing their very best efforts to make that happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I retain from your presentation behind the impressive portfolio in your involvement in supporting different countries to developing the needed capabilities. I also retain the word interoperability, which is a red wire crossing the full presentation. And I also admit that we need to be very careful on this word interoperability when developing the capabilities needed. But I also say that we also need to keep an eye on NATO side to maintain the same interoperability. It's equally important in my view. Thank you. The next speaker of today is Mr. Christophe Fontaine, If I'm not wrong, you have a presentation prepared, and I will ask my colleagues to help us with this. And he is the Vice President for Concept and Capabilities Development, NATO EU, International Strategic Development, General Atomics, or Aeronautical Systems, Inc. USA. Sir, the floor is yours.
Do you mind if I
No, absolutely not. Can I do this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us to be part of this great conference. It's my second time here, and it's always a real pleasure to be in Romania. And congratulations for the new conference center, for the perfect organization and the great level of this event. I know the panel is about American companies, so I'm French. Don't be surprised. It shows the open-minded of my CEO, and I will quote him: "Who better than a Frenchman can advertise American weapons within NATO?" So my company, we build remotely piloted aircraft, not UAVs. It's platforms that are designed to occupy the airspace, collect intelligence, and provide information in order to help countries to defend themselves and to deter potential adversaries. And that's what we do. And we've been doing that for the last 30 years, building a huge number of platforms, very effective, engaged in multiple operations over the last 30 years. And we have a tradition in this company. We are sensor agnostic. So there is a lot of possibilities to integrate sovereign sensors into our platforms and to make not only the aircraft better suited to the local requirements and to adapt them to the threat level. So huge family of aircraft being capable to address Army, Navy, Air Force requirements, Special Forces requirements, and also other ones. So we develop these platforms and we try to adapt them constantly. That's why we have so many models, and we try to improve them constantly in order to face the level of threats. So yes, the current platforms are motorized gliders, remotely piloted by a trained crew from a cockpit on the ground, carrying a lot of sensors, but we also enhance now their ability to operate in more contested airspaces by protecting them like any other aircraft with self-protection suits, and also by developing other platforms to be able to operate in more contested airspaces. And Ukraine currently is a good example that there is a requirement to occupy the airspace and collect persistently, which means H24 real-time with multiple sensors, but also to be able to engage these platforms to face a higher threat. And I really like your comment about being careful about the lessons learned. Yeah, there are some lessons learned to be taken, but the beginning of the war in Ukraine is different from what it is now, and it's more like the way you operate your sensors, your platforms, than the quality of the platform itself. So some platforms were very successful in the beginning, and you don't hear about them now because it's not exactly the same way of waging war. This platform occupies the airspace. They are costly but very effective, and when you procure them, based on my experience of my former life in the Air Force and in the procurement world, and based on what we can provide today, they can also be very useful to perform other missions in support to other services like disaster relief. We have huge problems of fires in Europe and also in the US, and we use RPAs to help the firefighters. Here's the challenge: is how you use these platforms and how you transfer the data to this civilian missions. But it's also very interesting when you procure the system to integrate that you may be able to use them because you occupy the airspace for other missions than just counterinsurgency or maritime surveillance. Maritime surveillance, it's not only a military mission, it's also a civilian mission with the Coast Guard. Two platforms I would like to highlight that match very much the requirements, especially here in Romania. The first one is a model we developed specifically for the Army requirements. Very, very robust, very capable, more than 40 hours endurance in the ISR configuration, more than 24 hours endurance in a weaponized configuration, heavy fuel, very easy to fly, a very simplified way to fly the aircraft. And connected manned and man-teaming capabilities with combat helicopters, with artillery. And again, here the idea is to occupy the airspace, collect multi-domain data in order to give situational awareness and ensure that you have this capability of deter and defend. A more capable aircraft developed is the MQ-9B family, so that's based on all the experience gained on the MQ-9 Reaper, a very capable platform, more than 40 hours in ISR configuration, capable to address maritime and as well as counterinsurgency operations, and developed in order to also address different aspects, like to be able to fly in unsegregated airspace. All these platforms are, because they are remotely piloted, had some difficulties to fly outside of segregated airspace, which means capable to answer other requirements. So this aircraft was completely rebuilt, not only to address these requirements, but also to address more missions in support to other services. The main improvement is now this aircraft, which is going to be delivered and put into service in United Kingdom next year and in Belgium in 24. It is certifiable. That means you can fly this aircraft without any problem in any airspace classes. Okay, for that it's also equipped with a detect and avoid and TCAS, which means this aircraft can even deal in uncontrolled airspace with any aircraft that is not squawking IFF or is not under control. So it's very capable aircraft. Was also designed to fly in adverse weather. So, for example, today it would be easily capable to fly, anti-icing, anti-lightning, capable. That means you can continue to collect even if the weather is bad. It's designed to be able to fly in more electromagnetic contested airspace. That means we have two data BLOS data link, so beyond line of sight data link. SATCOM anti-jamming, which is also in its current war used very much, especially for GPS, and some self-deployable capabilities, shorter takeoff. And that's the last point. It's we have make it easier to integrate sovereign sensors. So each time we go for our customers, we already have integrated a certain number of sensors, 2 different EOIR sensors, 2 different radars, different set of radios, and the system is open, it's built, the software is open to allow a customer to personalize his own equipment, weapons, sensors, and to make it easily and to have sovereign sensors inside the aircraft or on the pod. And that's an area where industry cooperation is open. Occupying the airspace, providing multi-mission, multi-domain collection in maritime domain and all that simultaneously for all the different set of missions in support to the different type of operation. In the Black Sea today, that's typically what you could be able to do, optimize the collection, multi-domain, do man-and-man teaming with maritime patrol aircraft you own or in NATO, and all this platform is designed, and it's proven, it has been flown already in many exercises, and it will be deployed in October in Japan in support to Coast Guard missions. So what is important, obviously, is the platform and the sensor, but more importantly, is the data. So that's what the type of collection you do. So now, today, it's no longer only an EOAR camera and a radar. It's more than that. It's SIGINT, it's ASW, even some air-to-air capabilities. So now the challenge, after you procure this aircraft, is, of course, to fly them, to integrate them in airspace, but more importantly, how do you deal with all this amount of data and make sure that this data is fused, processed, in a timely manner to be distributed for even if it's an Air Force aircraft, in a cockpit of an Army helicopter or aboard of a ship in order to address the different security requirements. That's where we are working a lot now, and that's where there's an area of cooperation, industry cooperation with the Romanian industry certainly is to enhance the capability to automate data collected by the aircraft and fused with other sensors, and also fused with a lot of information that is available in open source domain like AIS, so the IFF for the ships. You already have the history of all the activities over the last 5 and 10 years, and it's good to try to fuse, get this information, and compare it with the real-time collected information in order to, again, provide the best situational awareness picture. that you can get from this platform. So they occupy the airspace, they are multi-domain, and they collect not only in support to one service, but to multiple services, and also in support to NATO alliance. I believe that's my last slide. So, as again, we have gained from the 30 years experience of the different platforms we fly. There are more and more multi-domain capable, capable to support not only defense requirements but also civilian requirements. It's good to make this platform acceptable. They are not robots. They are flown by a human being. They are constantly into the loop, even if they are weaponized. And the challenge and the industry cooperation options are really into the how you make the best use of all this amount of data you are collecting. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Really impressive presentation, impressive capabilities, multi-domain capabilities, and indeed relevant for the Black Sea region as well. So thank you again. So the last, but not the least in this panel, I will give the floor to Dr. Philip PETERSEN, the President, New Generation Warfare Center USA, and he will give, as far as I'm concerned, some slides, but also I will ask him to draw some conclusions, preliminary conclusion at this point, so feel free to expand, Dr. PETERSEN. Thank you.
Thank you. It's time to liven this party up here. Okay. Anna-Marie, could you start the slides? All right. Now, I want to remind everyone that Vladimir Putin declared war on liberal democracies in 2007. So we're at war, all of us. Now, he has been waging that war by a new generation warfare. However his war against us ends, the result of his war will change the international security environment that has existed since the end of the Second World War. This new environment demands that Europeans grow up and prepare themselves for the changes that have and will continue to emerge from the end of the American century. Next slide, please. The 9 elements of Russian new generation warfare can be grouped into 3 broad categories of non-kinetic and kinetic means, and threats to employ nuclear weapons or destroy nuclear power plants. Next slide, please. Putin's war against the liberal democracies means that European members must prepare for and help prevent, to the extent that they can, American withdrawal from NATO, acquire the capability of defending themselves without direct participation of American troops, and conceptualize alternative means for deterring Putin's nuclear threats. The acquisition of certain superior American equipment can both produce more bang for the buck, or the euro is more appropriate here, and potentially influence American policy in a more positive direction for both American politics and European security. Since Russia and Russian money have corrupted American politics extensively since at least 2015, European liberal democracies should also be influencing American politics, but in a more positive way. Regarding Russian nuclear threats, Western deterrence theoreticians have already proposed a number of alternatives, which I'm happy to discuss if someone is interested. Slide 4, please. European NATO members need to stop using defense spending as an employment program and start making responsible cost-benefits assessments and what weapons they place in the hands of their soldiers, our children. For example, why in the world would Italy spend so much money to build an inferior response to the existing Russian helicopter threat today. It's insanity. I'm already going off script, sorry. Next slide, please. Every European Air Force wants the best fixed-wing fighter jets that it can persuade its politicians to purchase. And don't bother to explain the costs of the necessary air base hardening to include aircraft bunkers and constructing underground fuel storage and the purchase of rapid runway repair kits and demining capacity against Russian remote mining, to name just a few of additional costs to the aircraft themselves. The Azeri-Armenian War of 2020 was the first of the drone wars that is being confirmed by Putin's current war against Ukraine. While our New Generation Warfare Center is not opposed to fixed-wing aviation, we do believe that responsible defense planners will first consider aviation that is not tied to the defense of main operating bases, but present a lucrative target to missile and air attack. Next slide, please. The Apache attack helicopter not only addresses the issues raised so far, it's an existing superior airframe to the current Russian helicopter threat. It's not tied to the construction and defense of main operating bases, which means it will be usable from the moment the enemy attacks. We are, after all, a defensive alliance. They're going to get the first shot. And it's not limited to its famous anti-tank capabilities. Its target acquisition radar and full suite of network sensors can securely manage the battle space at the tactical level, which is the level of warfare at which Putin's aggression against Ukraine is being waged. Next slide, please. Finally, as we have seen during Putin's war against Ukraine, secure distribution of logistics is a challenge in today's operationally transparent environment. Off-road transportation has been a major challenge in this war at the tactical scale run by two amateurs, a terrorist and a fireman. If in the future European NATO members are required to defend themselves against aggression run by the Operations Directorate of the Russian General Staff, by that I mean professionals, they will need to deliver logistics in a hostile environment requiring not only off-road capabilities, but with the capacity for self-defense, and even the possibility of being redirected against deep penetrating Russian operational maneuver groups. In the matter of meeting challenging logistical demands, the remarkable wheeled vehicles produced by Oshkosh Defense also return us to the non-kinetic struggle, because they are produced in a critical so-called swing state, Wisconsin, thereby providing local political leverage to politicians that support American membership in NATO. I hope I've delivered enough controversy so we can have an interesting conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Petersen. And now I think it's that conclude the speakers part, and I invite the audience to address any question you may have to the speakers. And I will help you with a microphone if needed. Who will be the first? Nobody. Okay, then I'll try to break the ice with one general questions, and I leave you the liberty to answer. So, as you know, not a long time ago, NATO had decided to change the capability development process in an attempt to shorten the process and to deliver better quality equipment to the alliance. In this respect, and acknowledging the ongoing war in Ukraine and the need to speed up this process, do you think this process is still valid or it needs to be revisited, and if yes, what kind of means we can find, or we together can find, to shorten up the process and to deliver better and faster capabilities? Whoever want to answer to that.
Let's try. Of course, we are committed to deliver capabilities according to our commitments to NATO. But what happened? Not only Ukraine accelerated, but not only this year, but even before. Frankly, the requirements on the market increased. The main producer capability is the same. In the brackets, this is a huge possibility for other industries to jump in, and the Romanian defense industry could do it not only based on relationship with the Romanian forces, but based on their capability to ask the bigger producers in this area for cooperation. But, and coming back to our horses, in fact, now the queues for deliveries are longer. The time of delivery is longer. I speak about equipment. But the equipment capability is not the equipment, of course, but you cannot develop new capabilities without the equipment. So I'm afraid that now the capabilities based on new and performant equipment are not shorter in delivery, but are in the opposite situation. If we speak about a new created capability, this is my view at least.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add something?
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of complexities to answer your question. And, when you talk about the NATO alliance, there's so many, sovereign nations that all have their own interests involved in acquisition, and, making a major platform acquisition is a generational decision. I fully understand that. But when I mentioned urgency and you talked about rapid acquisition, when a country decides to acquire a platform from a major contractor, one of the keys to the ability to acquire the system as rapidly as possible is to purchase it in the common configuration, or the dominant common configuration. Like, I'll use an example. If you're buying an Apache or a HIMARS or something that is a U.S. Army piece of equipment, right? It's very critical that you buy a U.S. military configured common configuration. And I know that's not a simple. It's a simple thing to say, and it's hard to do for NATO member countries that have their own political concerns and considerations as they make acquisitions. They're spending lots of money for these equipments, but when speed of acquisition is critical, that's one of, if not the most important considerations, because that allows the U.S. government, the U.S. military, and those American contractors, or maybe another nation, whoever's building that piece of equipment, the most flexibility when it comes to schedule and delivery. Whether it's a change in the delivery, like for example, with an American piece of equipment like the General mentioned that takes years to produce. If the U.S. government has say 100 of them in the pipeline, and insert NATO member needs that equipment quicker, a request could be made to the U.S. government to take one of those American pieces of equipment off the pipeline and slap their flag on it and receive it a year or two sooner. But that only can be possible by the U.S. government if the NATO member country purchases a U.S. military configured piece of equipment. And it's easy to say, very hard to do, but that is one of the ways to overcome, to provide this sense of urgency for rapid acquisition.
Thank you, sir, for that answer. Please. I think we did have, we have a microphone there. Just a second, please.
Hello.
I think it's open.
Okay.
Călin Pantea from Martel. First of all, a comment for General INCICAŠ. In 24 years of operation, our company never felt discriminated by Ministry of Defense in our relation or in. In general, I just confirm that the private company are not discriminated, and we thank you for that.
No, it was just a statement. I wanted just to underline again, because all the time this was our continuous line. We underlined again and again that for the Romanian Ministry of Defense, when we ask for helping or no, supporting the national defense industry, we do not refer just to the private state-owned companies or the state-owned majority companies, but we refer equally to the private companies.
Totally true. It was in other parts that there were some kind of discrimination, but not with the Ministry of Defense. Now, my question is also for you, and from my our discussion with Lockheed Martin, with Adrian here, I think he could confirm, or he will not be upset on me that I put this question. For many years, we discussed the possibility of doing some maintenance or first tentative repairs, some parts of their radars. And one of the blocking part was that mainly the radars delivered by Lockheed Martin are dealt through the NSPA, former NAMSA agency, and not in a kind of direct connection between Ministry of Defense and Lockheed for what means integrated logistics support or repair that could create some capabilities in Romania for performing this kind of service. And this could be extended also, of course, to other American companies that are delivering systems in Romania. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for clarification. I don't think this requires an answer, if I'm not wrong. We are running out of time, unfortunately. Before... Someone want to answer something? Yeah.
In the interest of time, okay, because we are sitting here between you and the lunch, okay. So I will give you the response later on. Okay, we have this. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for understanding. Before concluding, join me in giving a big hand to our speakers for their speeches today. And I personally thank you on behalf of the audience for your effort to be here and for the speech delivered. Thank you and have a good day.
Anyway, this was the most